So if we can get a kid and his parent, his mom or his dad, to come out, even better, so that we can help them form that relationship and that bond as we go into the outdoors. What we're trying to do is just get our message out there about the importance of getting youth out there, and I think people understand it, and I think there's a lot of people out there that resounds with that message about the importance of getting people out there, youth, kids. It doesn't really matter what age. If we can introduce new hunters, late onset hunters, to the outdoors, I'm all for it. That's great. Just getting people aware of the outdoors and what's available out there for them is our biggest message, and hopefully that overshadows the negative connotation that comes along with Nimrod sometimes.
For many of the people that are listening to the Rye Skill Elite podcast, you guys may have kids, and if you don't, then of course you're going to know people who have kids, and it's extremely important that us as older individuals, whether it be parents, guardians, uncles, aunts, cousins, whatever role we may have where we are involved in the lives of the youths, then it's important that we have a positive impact on their life. And of course, as hunters and as outdoorsmen, we have an incredible opportunity to be able to introduce them into the outdoors. My guest today is Jeff Barlow. He is the founder of Nimrod Outdoors. He's got an incredible platform that he has developed along with his kids, where he has had the opportunity to be able to introduce youth into the outdoors, into the process of hunting, and be able to teach them how to hunt and how to be self-reliant out in the outdoors. So be sure that you guys check out Nimrod Outdoors once you hear mine and Jeff's conversation. Before we get to that, I just want to let you guys know that the Rye Skill Elite podcast is listener supported. If you guys want to help improve the audio and potentially the visual experience for the listeners and guests, then you guys can support the Rye Skill Elite podcast today. And just to be 100% transparent, my plan for the support that comes through for the Rye Skill Elite podcast from you guys is going to be used on being able to host visual interviews for this show. Up to this point, I've been using a software that does just audio, and I'm hoping to be able to implement some visual interviews as well into the future of the Rye Skill Elite podcast. So that is my plan as far as the listener support goes. If you guys are interested in supporting the Rye Skill Elite podcast, scroll down to the details of the show and you guys will be able to see how you can help out and support the show today. Also, if you guys haven't already connected with me on Instagram and Facebook, go ahead and do that. On Instagram, you can find me at the handle at Rye Skill Elite. And then on Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/RKE-Afield. So that's RKE as in Rye Skill Elite Afield. All right, so make sure you connect with me there. Give me a like, give me a follow, connect with me, send me a message. Let me know what you think about the show, whether good or bad. I'm okay with negative comments as well. We can see it as criticism. But if you're enjoying the show, I'd love to hear that too. So if you guys connect with me, that would be awesome. I appreciate you guys listening today, and I'm excited to be able to share this conversation that I had with Jeff Barlow. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my talk with Jeff with Nimrod Outdoors. So here we go. So I'm sitting here with Jeff Barlow. I appreciate you taking some time to talk with me tonight, Jeff.
Well, I am very excited to be on tonight, Tyler. I think it's going to be a great evening tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you're over there in Utah. Do I have that right?
Yeah, we are in Utah, central eastern Utah, a little town called Price, Utah. It's about 2 hours southeast of Salt Lake City area.
Okay. Yeah. I've never had the privilege of being able to make it out to Utah. I'm hoping to make it out there sometime, and I've heard it's an absolute beautiful state, and from what I can tell, they are definitely telling the truth because it looks awesome out there. So what are you doing right now as far as, getting prepared for the hunting season with, fall coming right around the corner? What's going on as far as your preparations go?
Yeah, fall is coming right up fast. But to tell you the truth, here in Utah, the archery hunt starts middle of August.
Oh, I'm jealous.
So we are actually walking out the door Friday morning to head up on the mountain to hunt Saturday. Our hunts start Saturday for archery. So right now we've got the front room in the house, and it is covered with backpacks and everything that's getting ready to be put into the backpacks and loaded up so that we can head out Friday morning.
Man, it sounds like you got a big weekend ahead of you. I'm glad I caught you tonight then.
Yeah, maybe if you'd have caught me next week, would have had a big buck on the
I
ground.
know, right? That's all right. We maybe schedule us another one then. We can hear a story about that, hopefully, if it works out for you. But
That would be awesome. But yeah, we've been going for a couple months and scouting, doing a lot of glassing, setting trail cams, um, looking into some new areas, just trying to learn some new areas that we found that are a little bit more remote, and hopefully we'll have less people in there, and we'll be able to find some good critters in there.
so are you hunting public land? Is it all
We
public
are.
land? Okay.
Yep, that's all we really hunt out here. Well, as far as me and my family, that's all we really hunt. We don't have access to any private ground or anything like that, so it's all public.
So what's that process kind of like for you over, trying to find the right public access points and making sure that, of course there's obviously going to be animals there. And what's that process kind of look like as far as the scouting process goes?
Well, I love maps, and I'm kind of a map geek, and uh, Google Earth is one of the greatest inventions I ever found. And between that and Onyx Maps, I use Onyx Maps a lot for um, locating public lands versus private lands, and things like that. But I use a mixture of the two a lot, and I do it all year. Um, and so I found this piece of ground. It's a really good piece of ground. Um, it's surrounded by private, um, and it's not. There's no roads into it. It's not easily accessible. Um, so we went to look at it to see what it would look like and put some boots on the ground, and we found the reason why it's not accessible and why a lot of people don't go in there. Right out of the car, the first half a mile on the trail is 1,100 feet vertical.
Oh, shoot.
So in a half a mile, you're going straight up 1,100 feet, and it's not for the faint of heart. I tell you that it's a good workout.
Yeah, that whole scouting, from the computer thing, I think that's something that everybody that does all types of hunting can really take advantage of. I know, like I said, like we were talking beforehand, I'm over here in Kentucky, and whitetail season's coming up for us here soon, and that scouting process, it starts at the computer. You got to study those maps,
Yeah,
study the topography of the farms from or in our case, and then the just basically the shape of the land to see where these animals are going to be. And I'm sure that is, like you said, is obviously going to be amplified in a place where you know it's going to be much more wide open, and the terrain is going to be much more, I guess it's a lot tougher, I guess, as you were kind of
yeah,
getting at there.
much more accentuated.
Yes.
Once you get boots on the ground, it becomes a little bit different of a story.
Yeah, definitely. And then and that part too, the whole boots on the ground too, that's an important aspect of it too. If the first time you're showing up to a property, or first time you're showing up to the land is whenever you got a bow in your hand, you're ready to go out and hunt, then you
Yeah,
have failed yourself at the whole scouting process. Because
the
I mean
whole preparation process.
exactly, because it's got to start on the computer. It's got to start by looking at maps, and not necessarily on the computer. Some people, some people, they still prefer the atlas thing. I don't know of any around, but I'm sure they do, the hard paper copies, but I'm sure they're around somewhere. But you got to start looking
Yeah,
at those maps, and then of course you boots on the ground, and then that's when you're going to discover the types of things that you discovered.
yeah. So a couple years ago, for instance, um, I was looking around on Google Earth, and I found this place um, in the Uinta Wilderness. It's a wilderness area here in northern Utah, um, and it holds the highest peak in Utah. This wilderness area, so it's some rugged country. And I was looking in these drainages and basins and things like that, and I happened to zoom in on this little meadow, and I found on Google Earth imagery about 70, 80 elk in a meadow on Google Earth imagery. I'm like, really? That's very cool. So the next summer, one of my boys and I threw on our backpacks and packed into there to take a look around to see if it would be a good place to do some elk hunting. And we got up to where we were supposed to be, and we started looking around, and lo and behold, there was a group of about 60 or 70 elk in that very meadow that I saw on Google Earth, and they were there in real life. Now, this was 13 or 14 miles deep into the wilderness area, and we figured, yeah, it might probably a little bit too far to pack something out of here without horses. So we haven't gone back in to hunt it, but we know they're there. We saw them on Google Earth. We put boots on the ground. We got there and we looked. They're right there where the picture showed them. So we now have a plan where we can go in and do some elk hunting, but we would definitely need some horses to get in and out with that.
If that's not a sign, then I don't know what is. If you're looking on Google Earth and you already see elk there,
Yeah.
that's got to be a sign right there.
Yeah, that's exactly that. And I wanted to check it out. I wanted to see what the country was like and why these elk were liking it so much that they were there on these photos. And I'll be darned, they were there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So have you always lived in Utah? Has that always been the area where you've grown up?
Yeah, actually, I was born in a town called St. George, Utah. Lived there in St. George, Utah. It's the very southwest corner of the state of Utah, about an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Las Vegas, Nevada. So a very, very similar climate to Las Vegas. Very hot during the summers. I remember summer days getting 114, 115 degrees.
Wow.
In the summer. Very dry, desert climate. So I grew up there in St. George and lived there for, probably the first 35 years of my life. I was there in St. George. Then about the last 10 years or so, my wife and I, we've moved up to Price, Utah for work. So that's where we're at currently. But yeah, we've lived, born and raised in Utah and lived here all our life.
So when did your journey with hunting, did your journey with the outdoors, when did that kind of start for you?
Well, I think if you ask my mother, she'd tell you it was in the womb. But no, I've always loved the outdoors from day one. My grandfather on my mother's side loved the outdoors. He spent a lot of his life in the outdoors. He worked after he retired. He worked for free for the Forest Service, and he'd just be out in the mountains cleaning trails or building fence or whatever. He just loved being out in the outdoors, and he was the one that always took me fishing and things like that. Of course, my father took me out hunting, and I grew up as a little kid chasing him around the mountains, and I still hear the words all the time. You got to be quiet. The deer will heal you. You got to be quiet. Hold still, and those are things that I tell my kids now. But yeah, from a very, very early age, I grew up in the outdoors and I just love the outdoors. There's something peaceful about them, something that now I realize more than anything that it's a place that I can get away from everything and get closer to my Heavenly Father and feel His presence easier. It's just a place I go to recharge, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm right there with you. That's exactly what it's like for me. I mean, I'm ready, especially with all this craziness going on right now, with the COVID stuff and all that kind of stuff. I'm ready to get out of the dang house and I'm ready to hit the woods.
Oh yeah.
That's why
Oh
I'm
yeah.
jealous of you to be able to get out this weekend and be able to get some hunting done. Cause I think it's instilled in us. I think it's something that God has literally put into our DNA to want to be out into His creation and to see Him, just like Romans 1:20 says, to be able to see Him and be able to, experience God through His creation. That's definitely,
Yeah.
something I can relate to.
If you ever get a chance to come out to Utah, Um, I think I'm a little biased. I have visited quite a few of the states in the United States in my years, but I think we have one of the prettiest states in the country. You can go from 13,000 feet at Kings Peak to the high alpines, to the desert. Um, we've got, Grand Canyon, Bryce Canyon, we got the Moab area with the red rocks and canyonlands and arches, and there is just so much variety in this state, um, that if you can't see the hand of God in creating this state, you're crazy.
Absolutely. Definitely. You definitely got that right. And of course that brings us up to, the your platform being Nimrod Outdoors. You know, where does that kind of come from?
Where did that come from?
And, what's kind of the inspiration behind what you're wanting to, I guess, achieve with your platform?
Well, years ago when I started it, um, my wife and I, it was kind of before Instagram even. My wife and I kind of had a joint Facebook account, and it got to the point that she told me, "You're going to have to do something different. All I ever do, and remember this was a joint account. All I ever see is your hunting stuff on my page." And, and so at that point, I knew, okay, I got to do something different. About that time, I had been reading in Genesis, and read um, about Nimrod in Genesis chapter 10. In Genesis 10, verse 9, it talks about Nimrod, and it says that he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. And I thought, oh man, that's perfect. That's what I want to be. I want to be a mighty hunter before the Lord. And so that's where the name came from. Was Nimrod Outdoors. Um, Later in life, if you look at the life of Nimrod, he doesn't turn out to be a very good guy. Um, uh, he's basically the founder of the Tower of Babel, and kind of becomes very rebellious towards the Lord. But that's not what we wanted to focus on. We wanted to focus on being a mighty hunter before the Lord. Um, and so that's where the name came from. At the time we started, I had my two oldest boys were teenagers, and I was looking for something to do to keep me involved in their lives and them involved with me. Um, and so we started up the social media pages of Nimrod Outdoors on Facebook, and we started filming our hunts, and our outdoor activities. And we created a YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel, Nimrod Outdoors, and we started putting all of those hunts and outdoor activities on the YouTube channel. And then, of course, since new social media things have come along, Instagram and Twitter, and all these, we've added these accounts to go along with our social media. But that was the basis of where it came from. And the whole purpose was to be involved with my kids and my boys, um, to get them. It's kind of ironic to get them away from their computers and their screens and their tablets and their phones and things like that. We created a platform where they were on their tablets and phones and screens. Kind of ironic,
Right.
but but it was a great way to get us in the outdoors together and be able to enjoy and learn and have some fun together and share and make some great memories. Um, so that's the basis of Nimrod Outdoors, and what we want to do with it is, we don't care whose kids come with us. We want to involve the youth in the outdoors and get them out, get them learning about the outdoors, learning about um, the whole heritage, the whole tradition, the whole outdoor arena, and teach them about how awesome God is in creating all of this for us and giving us the opportunity to be out there. So that's kind of our platform and what we are trying to accomplish, and hopefully, it's a message that resounds with a lot of people, and a lot of people can get on board and start mentoring youth and getting them out in the outdoors.
Yeah, that's great that you've really prioritized youth, with your platform, of course. And that's something that I think, a lot of hunters and a lot of outdoorsmen in general, they kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking wrong here, but they kind of overlook the younger generation. But in reality, like the younger generation, like the teenagers now, and like I have a 6-year-old little boy and a 4-year-old little girl. So like they are getting to the point now that where they're wanting to go out and hunt and that kind of thing. And I'm actually hoping to be able to take my son out and be able to get him a whitetail this fall. And
That would be excellent.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to it. And it's one of those things that, like, if we aren't, having the type of influence that we need to have as parents on our children, then there will be other things that are going to influence them. And a lot of those other things are going to be, negative things. Like
Very.
you turn on the news, you turn on the TV right now, social media, like there's a lot of things that are speaking into our kids' lives right now. And if we're not uh, taking the role to be proactive in that as parents, then it definitely has the possibility of being something that is going to be, of course, adverse.
Very, very, very true. Teenagers and kids by nature are looking for acceptance and inclusion.
Yeah.
And so if you don't, like you said, if you don't take that opportunity to do that, they will find that somewhere else. That's just in their nature as kids. And so it's very important that we get out and we take them, and it might be just going for a bike ride.
Hmm.
It might be just going for a walk on a Sunday afternoon. It doesn't matter. We just need to get them out and help them feel included, and accepted for who they are.
Yeah.
I talked to did a podcast with a guy named Johnny Mack a while back. He's got a podcast called the Soulful Podcast, um, and his big thing is he kind of goes with the mantra of mentorship is conservation. Um, if you think about it, it's true.
Yeah.
That next generation is what is going to make or break our heritage and our traditions and things like that. Mentorship is conservation.
Yeah. It definitely is, and that's exactly what you were saying. I mean, that's going to be something that is going to either extend, our opportunity is going to extend our tradition to be able to continue to hunt, or it's going to be the thing that actually ends up putting it in the ground. I mean, it's that
Yeah,
because I mean, with as long as because we mentioned the Bible, of course, and Nimrod being a hunter, these hunting is something that has been, around since the beginning of human history. Now, ever since God
yeah,
created us, I mean, ever since the fall and death entered into the picture, hunting has been a thing that has been going on. That's why you see it so early on with Nimrod in, Genesis chapter 10. Even that early, we
mhm,
see it in that point, and it's something that has continued up to this point. But we live in a culture now that is, of course, you know, geared towards instant gratification. We want our meat package. If we even eat meat, we want a package
yeah,
and we want it in a pretty, brightly colored package from the grocery store. That way we don't have to get blood on our hands. And, that's something that has overtaken our society and overtaken really much of the world. And what's being lost is all these opportunities for us to be able to speak into our kids' lives and be able to take them out and teach them the ways of the woods, to teach them to be woodsmen and to teach them to be, people who are going to look to creation to see the creator. I mean,
yeah.
that's something that I'm just as a parent, that's something I fear, as our kids get older and that kind of thing, I fear is going to be lost as things kind of advance. But it's, I guess, in a lot of ways, it's up to us, the ones that are here now, to make sure that that continues on.
Exactly. That is exactly right.
So to kind of jump back on Nimrod a little bit, I was looking him up a little bit, and of course, you mentioned how he was the kind of one of the founders and one of the main guys of the Tower of Babel, which of course was bad news in the Book of Genesis. so so
Yeah,
that was not a good time for Nimrod, but there are a few verses that specifically speak to Nimrod, and you know a couple of them mention his might, like how strong he is and that kind of thing, and how he is, a great warrior or a great hunter and that kind of thing. Like we were saying, like
Hmm.
that's something that, of course, continues on today. So I think in a lot of ways, like culture today, you when you hear the word Nimrod or the name Nimrod, you think of it kind of as an insult. But
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of kind of what we were talking about just a second ago, how hunters are seen as something that we're participating in something that doesn't necessarily have to, quote unquote, have to occur, because we have farmers who can get our meat for us and all that kind of thing. So I think it's been kind of warped in a way that the name has been warped in a way that has, of course, become an insult. And so how are
Yeah.
you kind of making sure that the word Nimrod, whenever you hear, of course, Nimrod Outdoors, what are some ways that you're trying to make sure that you're focusing on the good aspects of who Nimrod is?
Well, I think the main thing that we do is of course involve the youth. Get the youth there so that our message of getting the kids and teaching the kids and passing on the tradition um, is heard. I think that's one of the main things. I'm often surprised at how many people actually know of where the word Nimrod came from,
Yeah.
and the genesis of the word, where it came from. Um, it, I kind of took a little twist on it as I was creating Nimrod Outdoors. Our logo, if you ever look at our logo, it kind of uses that worldly connotation of Nimrod as screwed up. He's a Nimrod or whatever. Uh, so what I did with our logo is I mixed a deer and an elk and put them together in our logo. The front end of an elk and the back end of a mule deer, and that's our logo. It's all mixed up. It's screwed up. It's a Nimrod. Um,
That's awesome. I'm actually looking at it
but
right now. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so that what we're trying to do is just get our message out there about the importance of getting youth out there, and I think people understand it, and I think uh, there's a lot of people out there that resounds with that message about the importance of getting people out there, youth, kids. It doesn't really matter what age. If we can introduce new hunters, uh, late onset hunters, to the outdoors, I'm all for it. That's great.
Hmm.
um, just getting people aware of the outdoors and what's available out there for them is our biggest message, and hopefully that overshadows the negative connotation that comes along with Nimrod sometimes.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's interesting that you mentioned, the late onset hunters, those guys that get into hunting, much later in life. I've had a few guests on the show that were, I guess, considered late onset hunters, and the kind of perspective that they have on being somebody who they have a lot of memories of being a non-hunter, and then of course making that
Hmm.
transition into hunting. They I think they have a much greater, maybe not greater, but a much different perspective on the act of hunting and the pursuit and all the kind of work that goes into it.
Yeah, a different appreciation for it.
Yeah, definitely have a different appreciation for it, and it's because, like I was saying, it's something that is, they had a time in their life, much of their life possibly, where they weren't hunting, and for somebody like me, who I've been hunting since I was a teenager, probably right around the same age as your boys are, is when I started hunting. So most of my life, I remember being out in the woods and looking forward to the fall, like I am right now. Looking forward to
Yeah,
the fall. That way I can get back
no
out into
better
the
time of
woods.
year.
That's right. That's right. So I think it's just incredible that you guys, yes, you've prioritized really just about everybody, but of course people who are new to hunting, and youth and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's our biggest message, and we hope that we can spread that message, and they're the future of our traditions and our heritages and our passions and our loves. And if we don't instill that in them, they will disappear.
Yeah, definitely. So has it just been your kids that you have taken out on some hunts and kind of introduced, or have you taken some other kids that aren't necessarily yours?
Oh yeah, we'll take anybody that wants to go. From shed hunting to archery hunting to rifle hunting, it doesn't matter. To fishing, um, we go once a year. We have a little group of girls that we take out, and we go fishing for the day for a few hours. And we take those little girls out, and my daughter is one of them that we take out. And there's a group of us that help these young girls to learn how to fish, learn how to bait a hook, things like that. And we videoed a couple of those and put them on our YouTube channel. But it really doesn't matter. I remember a few years back, we took a young man out. His dad wasn't able to take him in the situation that he was in, so we threw him in with us, and we took him out, and we were archery hunting, and um, he came up to me really excited while we were hunting. He says, "I found a great big deadhead 4-point." Um, so we went and looked at it, and we talked about it, and we told him, well, this is what we do when we find a deadhead. Now, a deadhead is an animal that's died, and all the meat and bones have been eaten by critters and things like that, but the head and the antlers are still there. And so it's really cool to find these. And so we happened to tell him we'll get GPS coordinates, because in Utah you can't pick deadheads up. The fishing game want to come out and investigate them to see if they were like a winter kill or an animal kill, or if they had been shot by somebody and poached. So they want to do a little investigating. So you're supposed to take GPS coordinates, turn them into the DWR, and they'll go out and investigate. And if they can't prove death, or they can prove that it was a natural death, then most of the time they will return the horns to you, because you found them. If they can prove that it was poached, then they have to take them and do more investigation and see what they can find out. So we took GPS coordinates for this young man. When we got to cell service, I made a couple of phone calls to my friends that are DWR officers, and told them about it. And they said, well, we'll be around that direction sometime. We had some lunch, and lo and behold, they drive up. And so we grabbed them and went over, and we showed them where this deadhead was. They did their investigation. They couldn't find anything, couldn't prove anything. It was an older deadhead. And so they gave the deadhead to that young man, and he was super excited. He wasn't able to harvest his own animal, but he got to take home that big deadhead 4-point buck. And he's got it hanging on his wall in his house to this day. So he was super excited about it. But just, anytime we can take kids out and get them outdoors, we love sharing that experience with them.
Yeah, and who knows, finding that deadhead and finding the skull, it may be something that, as he looks up on the wall, he remembers the story of, you taking him out, and of course, involving him in the outdoors. And that may be something that leads to him actually going out again and hunting on his own. And, it may be the start of a snowball rolling down the hill, and it may be something that he, of course, is going to pursue later on in life.
Oh yeah. He's got to be 18, 19 years old now. Graduated from high school, very, very avid outdoorsman. Loves to go out and hunt and go shed hunting and things like that. So yeah, it was a very positive experience, and he is continuing on his path in the outdoors now.
That's great. That's great. So just to kind of back up a little bit, what is the process of introducing, youth, especially youth who may be a little reluctant, or they may be, I teach middle school kids, so I completely understand. I've got 2 kids of my own, but I completely understand as far as the youth mentality, that early to mid teenage range. Everybody's wondering, what they think about so-and-so. Everybody wants to know all that kind of stuff. And so how do you kind of approach, I guess, asking kids if they are interested in getting outdoors, and then of course getting them to actually wake up at 4:00 in the morning to actually go, and that kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
how's that process kind of look for what you do?
You want me to wake up at what time?
All right.
So the one good thing that we have, in our family is we have 7 kids. Um, we have six boys and 1 girl in our as our children. And so my boys and my daughter, uh, they have lots and lots of friends. Some are interested in the outdoors, some are not. Um, but they are the easiest way to be able to connect with kids, um, and be able to gauge interest levels. And it makes it a much easier invitation for them as well. Uh, if an invitation was to come from me, a 47-year-old man, to
Yeah.
take some kid out into the hills, number one, these days and age, you'd never know what parents would be thinking. Well, what's
Right.
wrong with this guy wanting to take my kid out? But where it comes from one of my children and saying, "Hey, you can come with me and my dad, and would be happy to help you or take you," and things like that. So just by having my own children and having them with their friends and being able to gauge interest and just talk to those kids about it, and they see um, how my relationship with my kids is. And a lot of them that come from broken homes or whatever, they want that kind of relationship with their families, their mom or their dad. And so if we can get a kid and his parent, his mom or his dad, to come out, even better,
Yeah.
so that we can help them form that relationship and that bond, as we go into the outdoors. So like for us, not to be a creepy guy that's 45 wanting to take little kids out into the outdoors. Um, it's the icebreaker is definitely my kids, and it's so easy to talk to other kids through them, and that's been our biggest success.
Now, do you typically have some parents that may join with you? Like they may
Yeah,
be
we've had
interested.
parents come with us.
That's
Uh-huh.
awesome.
Um, and it's great when they do. We love to bring parents. If we can help them form a bond with their child, that's great. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, that's there's nothing better than that right
Yeah,
there.
definitely, definitely. So, of course, you mentioned too, how you like to film hunts and doing some photography. I've watched some of your videos, kind of preparing for this, and I really like the way you guys put it together. And when did that kind of start for you, the whole filming hunts? And has there been times where it's been really tricky and all that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, there's been some times we started filming them way back, right when we kind of started Nimrod Outdoors. I had a really good um, um, sought after tag here in the state of Utah. I had a mule deer tag for uh, the area. It's a famous area called the Ponsegond. Very famous for large mule deer. And if you ask any mule deer hunters, they know the Ponsegond. So I had this tag, and it was really the first one we ever tried filming. Um, my boys at the time were my oldest ones were 13 and 15, I think. Maybe it's 14 and 12. Um, but they came along with me on that hunt, and that was the struggle. Them with the video camera was the struggle. Really shaky footage, um, and things like that. But it made for a great experience. The second to last day, we found the buck that we'd been chasing. Um, the whole hunt long, we'd been chasing this buck, um, and we found him in a place that was very stalkable. So we made our way up and around this ridge, and we located him down in the bottom, and he located us at the same time we located him. But he just sat there and laid there under that tree. And so I left my boys right there on that ridge with the video camera and our backpacks and things. And I made my way off the backside of the ridge and all the way out and around, and came in on the backside of this buck that was bedded there. And I told my boys, I said, you just stand up here with the video camera, and you just kind of mill around right here on top of this ridge, and you keep his attention on you. And I'm going to slip on in on the backside. And I got in there and I started sneaking in down the ridge on the backside and getting closer and closer. And I was watching them. They were giving me hand signals right and left and straight and things like that. And I was getting closer, and I could tell by watching them that at one point I was getting really close, and they were getting really excited. Um, and I got to within about 35 yards, and I knew I was really close, but I just couldn't find him. I couldn't find him for anything. I looked under trees. I looked everywhere I could possibly look to find him. Um, and I kept looking back at them, and they're like, he's right below you. They're hand signaling me, and I'm still looking, and I'd probably been there in the same spot looking for like 10 minutes, and I could not find him for anything. And I'm standing there looking, and all of a sudden he stands up at 35 yards, looks at me, and walks around the tree. And that was it. Game over. uh, but it was a great experience. Me being the hunter and them at 12 and 14 years old being the guides and guiding me into this buck. Um, that was the first hunt we ever videoed. If you go all the way back in our archives and watch it, you can tell it was some pretty shaky footage.
That's great though that you really allowed them the experience to be able to kind of, I guess, in a way, take charge of a situation. You know, being having a son and of course being a son and everything growing up. You know, those opportunities where the son has a the opportunity to kind of point dad in the direction, kind of, I guess, in a way, it allows him to take charge of a situation, and of course, that's going to, I guess, grow his leadership abilities. It's going to be able to allow him the confidence to be able to do that again, you know, much later on.
Oh yeah, very much so. At this point, as we hunt together now, I turn to them and ask their opinion because I value their opinion as much as I value anybody else's on the mountain. They've been there enough, they've done it enough, they've experienced it enough that I value their opinion and what they think and how we should attack a situation. And um, they have turned into very good hunters.
Yeah, that's great. That reminds me of the book Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. I don't know if you ever read that one. It's one of my
I have
favorite.
not read that one.
It's an absolute incredible book. It's one of my favorite books of all time. But basically, there's a section in there where he talks about how, you know, the son wants to know that he's got what it takes, and he wants to hear that from his father. And he uses the scenario when Jesus is baptized and the Holy Spirit comes down. The sky opens up, the Holy Spirit comes down. That's basically the father telling Jesus, the son, that, you know, you've got what it takes. And that kind of, whenever you're telling that story,
Yeah.
I immediately thought about that, because you're letting your kids know that, you know, you've got what it takes to be able to do this. You got what it takes to be able to be successful out here in this in the woods and out here in the wilderness. And that's awesome that you have really put that kind of trust in your kids.
I tell you, as adults, um, we underestimate our kids.
Yeah.
We underestimate their strength, their knowledge, their will. Um, I've got a 9-year-old boy that he spent the spring shed hunting with me. Um, Now when we go out shed hunting, we put on a lot of miles. We put anywhere from 10 to 12 miles on each day when we're out shed hunting. And we gain and lose elevation. One trip we went up 1,600 vertical feet in our path. And this 9-year-old boy was with me every step of the way. And during shed season, we probably put on close to 100 miles during shed season, and he was there every step of the way. Now, you tell me what 9-year-old boys are going to do that. There's not a lot of them that sit behind computers and the TV and their phones that will do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make them push their boundaries and their limits and their things like that, these kids are amazing. They can do these hard things, and once they do them, they realize they can do hard things. There's no stopping them.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely hit the nail on the head, and that's it. Really, the limits that we put on them are going to eventually end up being the limits that they end up putting on themselves. Like if we keep
Yeah,
telling them that, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, then eventually they're going to believe that, and they're going to just stop trying. And that's when I think you end up seeing a lot of these kids that, in a way, they're kind of depressed, and all they want to do is sit at home on video
yeah,
games, and because they know that that's something that they can control, the TV and their phones and their video games, and they know that that's something that they're good at, and they don't have to really try at anything. But whenever we push them, we challenge them, then I think that's really when you see what they're made of. And like you said, I mean, almost all the time we're going to be surprised at what they're capable of, and in a lot of ways they're probably going to end up surprising themselves.
they do. They end up surprising themselves, and they realize that the limits that they put on themselves is up to them, and they can accomplish whatever they want.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. So as far as the filming hunts goes, do they, help out with the editing process? Do they put the clips together? Or are they involved in that process as well?
They haven't been so much in the past.
Nobody
Some
likes
of them are
editing.
starting to. Yeah, no one likes editing. Uh, I've had a few of them that are starting to show some interest in it now, um, and I've got some that are showing interest in the videoing end of things. Taking the camera from me and them filming stuff on their own, and so you can kind of see some of them will gravitate to different directions. Some of them will gravitate to the editing side. Some of them will gravitate uh, to the filming side. Some of them, my daughter gravitated. She loves to be in front of the screen. Um, so each of them have their own strengths and their own um, things that they enjoy doing. The important thing is don't pinhole them and don't say no, you can't do this. Um, Encourage them, let them try it all, and see what they like, and go with it.
Yeah, definitely. Give them the opportunity to create a product, whether it be, a film, whether it be, I don't know, maybe a song if they're into music. Let them go
Hmm.
out and hunt. Basically let them create a product and let it be theirs. And I think
Yeah,
that's a great. If I had to give any kind of parenting advice, which like I said, I've only got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, so that's as far as my advice can go. So that's where it ends. But I'm sure I'll be looking for some more. But
I've I've got them. I've got them all the way down from 22 years old down to 7 years
there
old.
we go. So you got a wide range there, but
Yes, we do.
so there was one thing also that I was checking out your website that I noticed, and it was this Camp Nimrod. So what's Camp Nimrod, and what are the plans for that as far as implementing that into Nimrod Outdoors?
So that's something I came up with last year, and we're hoping to make it happen this year. Camp Nimrod is I've got a dedicated hunter tag here in Utah, and that allows me to hunt all three hunts. Um, I've got my oldest son that has the same tag, so we can hunt the archery, the muzzleloader, and the rifle hunt. Um, and then my other boys have tags for deer and elk. Uh, we don't we don't need the meat. Our freezers are full. Um, so what I came up with was I'm going to give my tag up, and my oldest son said he'd give his tag up. And we're looking for youth that have never had the chance or the opportunity to hunt mule deer in Utah. Um, there's kind of a stigma of that's the cool thing to hunt in Utah, the mule deer. Um, Anyways, we want to put on a big show for these kids. We want to bring them to Camp Nimrod, and we'll have their families come with them. I've talked to a lot of my friends and some sponsors. Um, we'll put on a big dinner for them, have it catered. Would bring the Division of Wildlife up and have one of the wildlife officers talk to them about conservation and things like that. And Utah has a great mentor program where a kid that does not have a tag or did not draw a tag, um, they can hunt off of an adult's tag that will mentor them. So I could mentor a kid and allow that kid to hunt off my tag and be able to harvest an animal off of my tag. Um, and so we're trying to get a couple of guys that will come and mentor kids and be able to bring, 3 or 4 kids up to Camp Nimrod. We've got some great sponsors that will donate some backpacks for these kids, some camouflage clothing for these kids, even some optics for these kids, and just make it a great special experience for them to come to Camp Nimrod and be mentored out in the field.
In today's like social media filled world where it seems like everybody who hunts, well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people who hunt, they really want, like, how much can I get? I really want to make sure that, I don't know, I'm getting this, I don't know, 250-inch mule deer or 400-inch elk. But the fact that you've purposefully given up your tags, and allowing these kids the opportunity to learn something new and experience something new, I think it's just absolutely incredible. Because I mean, just as, like I was saying, just as easily as somebody else may take those tags and go try to film and some monster deer and elk, that's not something that is, of course, a priority for you as far as your tags go. That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we're hoping to do, and have a great event, and bring these kids to Camp Nimrod and just show them a great time, and then of course get them out in the field and hopefully help them to harvest their first animal.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So when is that taking place? You may have said it. I might have missed it.
That that will be for the rifle hunt. That's in mid to late October here in Utah, and so hopefully we can get it all situated and get it all going. Like I said, I've talked to a bunch of sponsors and people that would love to be part of it, and so that's what we're going for.
That's great. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all plays out come October. I'll be following that pretty closely.
That'd be great. We'd love to have your input and to help us spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely going to do that. So I've got a couple more questions for you, kind of as we're closing down here. This first one, I don't know if I really prepared you for it, but this is something that I always like to ask my guests. I always
Oh,
like
random
to
questions.
Random question. Here we go. But I always like to throw this out there, just kind of at the end of the conversation after we've kind of gone through, you know, what you're all about, and for you personally, what does hunting mean to you?
Oh man, uh, I don't know if I can explain what hunting means to me. I was asked one day, uh, being a father of 7 kids, I was asked one day, what is your favorite sound in the outdoors to hear? And I said, nothing, absolute silence. and, and that's because my house is very chaotic and it's always noisy. Um, but that is one of the things I love to hear in the outdoors is silence. It gives me the opportunity to re-energize, get closer to my heavenly Father, enjoy His creations, um, and just do a little soul searching and become a better person. And that's one reason I love to get out and go hunting. The other one, of course, is family. Um, Getting my boys out there, my daughter out there, my wife, getting out, spending time in the outdoors with my family. Um, we used to, living in southern Utah, spend a lot of time with my extended family, my dad's family, my cousins, my uncles, and we would have big camps. The whole family would be there and camp together and go hunting. So family time is another huge part of hunting. Being able to provide for my family good clean meat and protein, that is it's a great side. That's just like icing on the cake right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That the whole family camaraderie, just being together and all that kind of thing is something that seems to always show back up whenever I ask people that question. I think it's just a testament to, that hunting is really, it's more than just the act of killing. Like there's so much more to it. There's so much more around it
Yeah.
than just that part. Of course, that's a part that is necessary. It's a part that does happen, and it's a part that, life eats life, and that's something that we got to do in order to, like you were saying, get that meat on the plate. But at the same time, that's not all it is. Like there's so much more to it. And for anybody who has been hunting for, any amount of time in their life, they have some kind of story similar to that. And that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So where can listeners, can they connect with you? Where can they check out Nimrod Outdoors? What are all the outlets as far as your content goes?
Well, of course, we're on Facebook, Instagram. We got our YouTube channel. Everything is listed as Nimrod Outdoors. Um, we have a Twitter account. My boys even got me to do a Snapchat account. But everything is listed as Nimrod Outdoors. You can find us on the web at beanimrod.com. But yeah, that's those avenues have my contact information. You can email me at any time with any kind of questions, anything like that. We just love to hear from people and be able to chat with people. That's one thing I can do all day long is talk hunting.
All right, definitely. And I'll make sure I include all that information down in the details of the show. That way, if people are interested in checking out Nimrod Outdoors and connecting with you, they'll be able to click those links down there and be able to go straight to that. So, Jeff, I appreciate you being on the Rice Elite podcast. This was a really awesome conversation, all about really just about everything. Of course, family and hunting and all the things that truly matter. So, I appreciate you being on the Rice Elite podcast with me.
Well, Tyler, I really appreciate the invitation, and it has been a great evening. And hope your listeners enjoy it and get on the movement of getting the youth in the outdoors and mentoring.
Absolutely, 100%. All right, there we go, guys. So there was my conversation with Jeff Barlow of Nimrod Outdoors. If that doesn't inspire you to introduce youth in your life, whether it be your kids, but whether it be your nephews, nieces, whoever it may be in your life that is around that teenage age, then I don't know what's going to. The platform that Jeff has developed with Nimrod Outdoors has been something that I know has impacted a lot of young people's lives, and I know it's going to continue to do that. So thank you guys for listening to my conversation with him today. If you guys found any value from today's episode, be sure to leave a rating and review in the podcast platform that you're listening on. I know most of you guys are probably listening on Apple Podcasts, based on the demographics that I can see on my side. So Apple Podcast has a really easy way to be able to leave ratings and reviews. Basically, if you go to the homepage of the Rice Elite podcast, scroll down to the bottom, you can click 1 through 5 stars, whatever you feel like the show deserves, and then leave a real quick review. All right, so maybe you love the show, maybe you hate it, whatever it may be. You can leave a rating and review there, and I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you guys again for listening to the Rice Elite podcast. One last thing before I let you go, be sure to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, you can find me at the handle @Rice Elite, and then on Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/RKEafield. All right, be sure to subscribe to the Rice Elite podcast so you don't miss out on any of the future episodes that are in the works right now. So with that being said, my name is Tyler Pruitt, and I'll see you guys next week.